My name is Carol Freeman. I'll just start out with a really quick little intro of myself. Carol Freeman, and I've been following a ketogenic diet for about 3.5 years now, and I'm trained as a nutritionist and I'm also a master's degree in psychology as well. But it took a horrible car accident in 2014 for me to be able to find a ketogenic diet to not only heal from a brain injury, crush injuries to my legs, but also transform my body, which, despite the fact having 2 degrees in nutrition and practicing as a credentialed healthcare provider in Washington State, I have developed metabolic syndrome following the traditional, conventional recommendations. And so losing over 60 pounds, 10 inches off my waist, blah, 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 you know, the whole long list of all the things that got better. And so I'm here now to share and interview people about their success stories. So we have Chuck coming up first. Oh my gosh, wait till you guys hear his story. He's a good one to start with. And then after Chuck, we'll just have some volunteers and whoever wants to go next. So welcome. Let's see, which way's gonna be here? You don't want that blast in your ear. Hey Chuck, yeah. I just met you today, but tell us who you are and tell your story.
Okay, first off, I started keto in August of last year. Okay, and you're probably wondering what the big guy is doing up here. I've lost 137 pounds so far. Now that's significant because, first off, what you need to know about me is I served the United States Army. I ran a 5-minute and 38-second mile. I was in great shape, and after I had gotten out of the Army, I entered the workforce and started to live my civilian life. Got married, had two daughters. I started gaining weight, and I went to the gym several times. I've been on 100,000 diets. I've done all that. This is the first diet or the first lifestyle I've ever entered into where I have been on for going on a year now. And it's been, and I've never been on any type of weight loss system or anything like that that I've been able to stay on for a year. Funny story about me, I have a website called quartertonketoman.com. And I call it Quarter Ton Keto Man because when I started this, I weighed nearly 1/4 ton. That's 500 pounds. What that meant is there was no scale that could ever weigh me, no medical scale. I had to literally weigh on a pallet scale. I'm a smart guy, so I went to this packaging place, and I happened to know the people there, and I said, hey, would you guys mind if I weighed on your pallet scale? And actually it's kind of funny because when I went down to weigh on it, there was like people in the offices as I'm walking through, and they were just laughing. I was up in front when they were laughing because the receptionist had to go back and tell them, hey, there's a guy that wants to weigh on our pallet scale. So I'm cool with that, I get it. I would have been laughing too if I was in their position, but so I didn't get my feelings hurt or anything like that. It is what it is. But guys, first I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to tell you that I was not I'm not a glutton. One of the mistakes that people make is they'll call people who are overweight gluttons, and it's not that at all. And I'm sure through this conference you'll figure out why. It's a lot of it is hormonal, with insulin resistance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, I worked out all the way up to nearly 500 pounds, and that is, and so I have a lot of self-control. Believe it or not, people who struggle with weight loss have greater self-control a lot of times than people who don't. I had a doctor call me up, a friend of mine. He's going to be speaking here today. It's Dr. Brian Litzkis, and he's a internal medicine doctor. He's my primary doctor for all that stuff. And when I first got in, just tell you a real quick thing. When I first started doing keto, I had an edema on my legs. Now I just got a big giant sore where I kicked a metal pipe, but I had an edema in my legs. My legs were swollen. I could put my fingers and make little craters all over my legs, because they were swollen. I think the term for that is called cankles or something. I do have ankles now. That's a great thing. I was hypoglycemic. I was obviously headed towards type 2 diabetes. I had my heart raced. I had problems with my heart. I had a lot of inflammation going on. My nose would get stuffy at night when I slept. All sorts of physiological things. My A1C was through the roof. I mean, it was way up. It's funny. I was talking to is it Chris? Chris. I was talking to Chris earlier. We were just talking about A1C, and my A1C is now down to 5. And one thing I'd like to point out is still being an overweight guy, because I lost 137 pounds. It's really a great thing, because now I can go out with my, wife, and I love to go shopping with her. Now, guys, you met it here. Okay, look, I get it. You guys don't like to go shopping. I understand that. But it was just a pleasure for me to be able to get out and be able to walk around the grocery store with her and walk in different stores without getting tired. I called up Brian Metzger, so you guys will hear later on, and I told him, I said, hey, Brian, guess what? He said, what? I went shopping with my wife today. He's like, okay. Anyway, so I have a lot more freedom now than I had. I'd love to come down here to San Diego and walk around down here now, which is something I couldn't do. So all of my symptoms have completely reversed. I got perfect blood levels on everything, and I'm still moving forward. I'm still going to continue to drop weight, and I'm not on this. Like I said, this is a lifestyle. It is not a diet for me, and I love doing it, and I feel a lot better now. And I'm just trying to think of. I'm missing. A lot of the challenges of being overweight is I couldn't sit in booths at restaurants. I couldn't. I had to give my daughter my Ford truck to drive, because it was a nice truck too, by the way. And so I gave it to her because I couldn't fit in my own truck. The seat belt would go around me, and the steering wheel was jammed against my stomach. So I had to give her my truck, which I was okay. She's nice and safe in that. It's a big truck. But so a lot of huge changes just in this first year, and I'll be on it for a lifetime. But so I'm enjoying every bit of it. I've got good mental clarity, and by the way, just telling by the way, if I walk by you guys and it smells kind of weird, it's because I sweated through my clothes twice today. Because I'm actually running around setting up media equipment everywhere. That's what I do for a living. I'm a multimedia sound and lighting engineer / IT coordinator / I got a lot of hats I wear. My boss says I'm so many technical things he doesn't even know what I do. So, but anyway, that's pretty much my story. Is there anything you wanted to?
Oh, apparently I didn't turn off the ringer on my phone.
Wait, now I've got that song in my head.
Oh, it's resumed. All right. Yes, phenomena. Oh my gosh, Chuck, thank you so much for sharing your story. One of the things I love the most about what you said was the whole misconception that we have in this country and our society about overweight people being gluttonous or weak-willed. And I gotta say that the 400 women that I've worked with personally, I know that that's the opposite of true. There's nobody that's worked harder than somebody who's tried the 100,000 diets that you have and contemplates starting one more diet. Like, what kind of willpower does that take when every other time you try a diet, it's been you're hungry, you're tired, you're miserable, and all those things. And to think about trying yet one more time, that person has more willpower and more strength and tenacity than anyone else out there. So thank you so much for saying that part of it, and congratulations on your success. Very inspirational for everyone as well. Thank you so much. Who would like to go next? Chuck, if you'll just, I know that Doug's going to be doing opening remarks at 11:45, and so if we wrap up here by 11:40, that will give us all time to run over there and join the start of the conference officially. So, come on up. Who's next here?
How are you?
Hi.
My name is Greg.
Greg. Oh, whoops.
Hi, everybody. Oops. Did I screw that up? Or was that supposed to be?
Yeah. Here, you sit down and I'll get the video going here then. Greg, tell us your story.
Oh, sorry. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Okay. I've done something that I've never done before, which is actually go to a medical conference, pay out of my own money, and come here. And I'm here because, one, I want to learn more. 2, I want to personally meet people like Steve Finney, Jeff Follett, and Gary Tubbs, and thank them personally for all the information I've learned from them. But long story short, I have a history of diabetes in my family. My mother died of diabetes, and it was horrendous death. 400 pounds overweight. To your point, Chuck, thank you for your service. It's nothing, this is not gluttony here. This is all about hormones, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on this, but before I got into this, I was an expert on nutrition. What does that mean? Well, fats are 9 calories per gram, and the proteins and carbs are 4 calories per gram, and you should have 40% of your diet carbohydrates, and saturated fats, bad for your cholesterol. And honest to God, what got me going with this is I saw a movie called The Science of Fasting. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that before, but it really blew my mind. And I had about 2 weeks to myself when, over Christmas time. I thought, I'm gonna give this a whirl. And it got me going, and I dropped like 30 pounds in a couple of weeks. But thank God for YouTube, because you watch one video and it's like, you might also like this, and it's just this rabbit hole. And then brought me, to Jason Fund with his work, to Nina Teicholz with her work, to Gary Tubbs with his work, to Low Carb Down Under, which all these amazing presentations are online, and it's like every single weekend I spent 3 or 4 hours just soaking this stuff in. I'm sorry that Kate Shanahan wasn't here, because I saw her presentation on vegetable oils, and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea how poisonous this stuff was. But I'm here to learn, because my A1C went from 5.9 to 5.1. I've dropped about 40 pounds, but the thing is, I take a look at pictures of me before. What I don't see is overweight. What I do see is inflamed and toxic. And just getting rid of processed foods, artificial sweeteners, any kind of carbohydrates. And I think where people go wrong with this is that they listen to the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, recommendations for eating, and they think, okay, high carb, low fat, right? So they go low carb, but for some reason they keep that low fat part of the equation. And what happens? You end up with like a dry chicken breast on dental lettuce, and that's going to last you how long, right? And I remember watching Jeff Vollett's presentation, and about halfway through it, he mentioned that it's the high fat part of this that people have a hard time wrapping their head around. I thought, you're absolutely right. But I don't know how many times I've seen the same presentation, and it's so funny to run into different people online, and I'm sure you guys have all your own stories, that have just discovered this information through the same process, because you don't hear about this. But I can't, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, I feel 100% better, and I eat really nutritious. I try to tell people this is like, look, I'm not getting up in the morning and I'm feeling like deprived. If you eat highly nutrient-dense foods, 1, you don't overeat, 2, you're satisfied, and an analogy I like to use is, when's the last time you had 5 steaks? Doesn't happen, right? When's the last time? Pardon me?
Shopping.
There you go. Right, shopping, right? I know what you're talking about. Or a dozen eggs. Doesn't happen. But what about an entire bag of potato chips? Well, what is the more likely thing of the 3? Of course, the potato chips, because they're garbage calories. And I think the most dangerous thing you can say about this stuff is it's empty calories. It's far more dangerous than that is. And I discovered that through trial and error. And I'm here to learn more. I'm here to network with people, because my goal is to try, once I'm sure like you have done, between the American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, USDA, they're killing people. Mm-hmm. And I have some friends of mine that are doctors, and it's like they're changing their practice to try to, in their words, take out as many diabetics as possible. Because when you have, like I saw Sarah Hulbert give a presentation, and she had a woman that was on insulin for 20 years and switched over to keto diet and was able to drop all insulin in 3 weeks. And it's like, I don't know about you, but if I was that woman, I'd be PO'd. How much are you spending on insulin, plus the damaging effects of this, and you're stuffing cells full of glucose all day long, which is toxic, And it's just amazing that the backwards mindset people have towards diabetes. But I could go on for like 2 hours, seriously. I'm here, I'm grateful to be here. I'm here to learn more. I'm here to network because I'm from Arizona originally, and I'm going back to try to change as many people as possible. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Greg, for sharing your story. Little fun fact, my mom's maiden name is Marshall, so maybe we're related.
Could be.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Congratulations on your success, and congratulations for finding this lifestyle. All right, taking volunteers. Who would like to share their success story? All right, we've got Dorian Greenow over here. Mr. Keto Mojo himself is coming up to the, it's not really a stage, but to the spotlight. All right, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for coming and sharing your story. Dorian.
Hey, thank you, Carol. How are we all doing today? All great?
Yes.
And I hope everybody in the world of Instagram is doing good whilst he spills his coffee here.
Yeah.
That's there. My name is Dorian, otherwise known as Mr. Mojo, and back in 2015, I was 207 pounds. I was on antidepressants. I had all the biomarkers for metabolic syndrome, and I was looking out. I don't do diets. My wife had done a cabbage soup diet. Oh my God, that was stunk. And I'm like, what is this? So a good friend of mine, Todd White of Dry Farm Wines, he goes, Dorian, you've got to give up those white devils. He's got the southern accent. White devils, like a preacher. He was going, and I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? So I started looking on the YouTube and looking at every single presentation and reading the different books that's out there, The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Living. And the science just made sense. So I started keto. And at that time, I was doing like lazy clean keto, which means I don't track my macros, I just eat keto foods. But I was testing with an Abbott meter, and those strips were so freaking expensive. And it really bothered me. But, every day I got this daily affirmation that what I was doing was right because I was in ketosis. And then over a period of time, my weight dropped off. Now I want to come back to Chuck. I just did keto and yoga. I hang out with 17 chicks in tight pants. And those ladies beat my ass every single day. But you try doing yoga with a sack of concrete on your back. Inside everybody who is overweight is an extremely strong individual, and they are trapped. They are trapped by an addiction, and that addiction is glucose. And we have to change the paradigm of glucose. And that's when I came back to looking at this strip, and it was like $4 a pop. And I go, I do not understand why we're getting charged so much for these strips. So I made it my mission to change this. I went to 100 different manufacturers across the globe. I cross-matched that to the 510Ks and the federal regulations. I knocked on every single door I could, and I sent emails, and eventually I could find a manufacturer that would work with me. And it was a simple business plan: test 3 times a day for less than the cost of a latte. And you'll be surprised how many people don't know how much a latte costs. But eventually we got there. We decided that we were not going to be a bunch of pharma bros and make huge amounts of money out of our people, because what we should be doing is making people healthy and not wanting them to be in a trapped cycle that we have. Because ultimately my goal is to actually change the farming paradigm in America. And the only way we can do this is by having a market forcing function. And what I mean by that is people start buying pasture-raised meats. They start buying organically raised vegetables like that. And then suddenly, through seeing people like the Nutrition Coalition that you're seeing, as they change the policy, we can have the ability to change the farming. Instead, what's happening with farming is we are subsidizing obesity in America, and that's why we have such massive healthcare costs in that. Because I truly believe that we can bring down the healthcare costs, we can bring down the cost of the vegetables, and people can eat really, really happy, vibrant lives. And that's what we want, to have the best possible optimal lives. So that's how keto changed my life, and I'm really glad that I'm now in a position to be able to pay it forward by driving down the cost of testing for everybody.
Dorian, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for the work that you're doing as well. And how many here have a Keto Mojo meter? Oh my gosh, almost everybody in the audience. That's awesome. That's great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Oh, he's got it with him there. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just love how not only does it transform our lives and our health, but then it inspires us to go out and do more and help more and heal other people as well. So one of the great things about being here at this conference is that that's what we're all on a mission to do. And you know, I think last year at one of the conferences, somebody said, like, I'm a photographer and I go to conferences all the time and nobody's hugging at the end of these conferences, but that's what's gonna happen at the end of this, is this is your first time here. You're gonna make friends for life here, you're gonna be hugging them all at the end, and you won't be able to wait until next year's conference too. So who is up next? Who would like to share their success story with keto, low carb, transforming your health? We got the Keto Chow people here. I probably should call on them next. You guys want to go? Yeah, I think we should have both of you.
Yeah, Chris and
All right, we've got Chris here, Chris Bear, Keto Chow. All right, share your story, man.
Okay. Well, so keto has been the only thing I've ever tried in my entire life that has had a lasting and impactful effect on my health, on my weight, and quality of life. I started doing keto back in October of 2014. I'm 77% the man I used to be. So anyway, but for me, well, I don't know if you want my full story. Miriam probably shared most of that in the podcast interview.
Well, this is a different audience, so nobody
Okay,
here has seen
yeah.
that yet.
Well, I kind of went at it a really weird way. I am excessively lazy, and I wanted something that I could do keto with that I didn't have to think about anything. So I came up with, there's this meal replacement thing called Soylent. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. But and I just started making a recipe that's protein and vitamins and minerals and the whole deal, so that I didn't have to worry about any of that. And the recipe is, well, it's on my website. If you want to make it yourself, go right ahead. Because more than anything else, keto has changed my life so much, and I just want to share that with other people. I mean, we sell it too, and we do a dang good job with the flavors and everything, but more than anything else, I want to make keto really easy for people. And well, when I started keto, so I guess going back, I jumped in with both feet without doing any research, without doing really much of anything, and I got keto flu so bad. I was laying in bed, I was Googling keto flu. It's like, oh, that's a thing. So drank some chicken broth, learned about drinking pickle juice, and everything was better. So I'm looking for ways to help other people to succeed at keto more than anything else. So like we sponsor a meetup group in Utah, which, hi Utah, that's where we're from. And just we don't promote our product there. It's just bringing people in, telling them about keto, and it's amazing the changes that you can see in people's lives. We'll have people who come in and you can see from month to month them losing weight.
What are the top 5 things that got better with you?
Being able to, I actually remember my kids got one of those rib sticks, the ones where you swivel your feet back and forth. It is the second most inefficient mode of transportation known to man. The most inefficient is a pogo stick.
Okay.
This is close. And my kids, well, they wanted to teach me how to do it, and then I was also learning how to do it and teaching them, and also I just remember running alongside my kid and thinking, wow, a year ago I could not have done this. And it was just fantastic. Tying my shoes without having to exhale all the air first. Things like that. Those are the biggest things. And we've actually, some of our kids have started doing keto. One of them, he decided he didn't want to do keto anymore. And he has tummy issues right now. I'm like, the fix for that, but I don't know, it's just interesting because you can't force someone to do this. And I think that's my biggest problem on keto is I'll see people and it's just like, oh, I can help you, but they have to want to be helped. And That's insanely frustrating, especially when it's your kids or parents. We just came from Keto Fest, and I don't remember who it was, but they talked about the powdered butt syndrome. Anyone who powdered your butt.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, it was Ken Berry. Anyone who powdered your butt isn't going to take you seriously when you give them health advice. So, you know, it's frustrating to see people who you really wish you could help out, but.
Who here has friends and family members that you're like, oh, I wish you'd come and join me?
But, you know, and the funny thing is, you stick with keto long enough, and they tend to come around.
Yeah.
The people who made fun of you at work because you're eating, you know, butter. I haven't gotten quite that much, but they tend to, you know, they see what you're doing, and then they tend to come around and finally ask you how to do it, and then they say, well, that's too hard. And then about a year later, they're like, okay, maybe, my A1C is 8, so, anyway.
Not yours, but that's
No,
what
no,
they're saying, yeah.
no, my A1C is like 5.7 or something like that. It's fantastic. But.
Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story and all the work you're doing. Another example of somebody who's inspired others too. So wonderful. All right, next volunteer. All right, come on up, Jess. She's going to share. She's got a great story, and she's also another example of somebody that's going out and trying to help people in droves too. So, Jess Dudley, welcome. Thanks. Share your story.
So last year I thought I was going to get to do this, and I had to go have coffee with Christy. Cooking with Christy. Coffee. Yeah. So I'm Jess Dudley, and I'm down in Atlanta, and I did keto. I did the original Atkins, when Atkins was kicking. Remember Atkins?
Yeah.
Remember the old days?
Parents.
And lost all the weight, but then thought I had it. Went back. Gained it all back. Went back to Atkins, lost all the weight, and then went back. This time I didn't even call it Atkins. I know what to do to get rid of the carbs. I got rid of the carbs, and I bumped into this drink called Bulletproof Coffee. You've all heard of it. I hadn't heard of this. It wasn't there 25 years ago, right? And you butter in coffee, like for real. And it was kind of, you know, we blended it, we all looked at it, who's going to drink it? You know? That's butter in coffee. But Atkins was, we all think Atkins was high protein, high, that's what you think. But keto is high fat, moderate protein, and that was new. And I started this search for this new truth and haven't turned back. So I did keto 4 years ago, dropped 85 pounds in a matter of about 10 months, and recognized if I go back, I know what's coming. All the problems I had before. Depressed, almost housebound. I'm a personal trainer with no clients because I gained up that weight in front of them, all of them. Couldn't exercise. I'm a spin instructor who couldn't ride the bike anymore because I was tired and I hurt all over. So I changed all of that with keto. And keto gives you like energy. And my story really isn't that I lost the weight, it's what I've done with the energy. And one of the cool things is when you hear these people come up here, almost everyone after the diet has gone on and helped someone do something, develop something, can't wait to get involved with others. Well, we started small groups in Atlanta. Down in Atlanta, there's a church on every single corner. Every corner has a church, and every church has like 100 small groups. So that was my culture. Have a small group in your home. Invite your friends over. Go do coffee and share your story. Well, people started, when you lose 85 pounds, they all come until you say butter in your coffee, and then they all go. And when you say Atkins, they all go too. But what if things have changed? And then I think what I do best is I tend to lead people to the credible, to the Gary Taubes book, to the Diet Doctor website, to your site, to Christy Sullivan's recipes and cooking. You know, one of the things we get to do with our success is help others get around the credibility that is everywhere, from the top all the way down to the everyday person. There are stories, there are recipes, there are ways to keto-fy, everything. And if you can help people, the number one thing it does is it keeps you honest. Oh my gosh. It keeps you trying hard. We don't do so much for ourselves, but boy, we'll do it for you, right? There's something about community, because if we could do it alone, we would all be skinny. We would not have these problems. So my communities, last year we did, I'm gonna do a breakout session. Last year I tallied it up over 100 small groups. In our gym, we went to the hospital with the gym. In our church, we had 8 women. They met weekly. They lost a ton of weight. And these groups just keep popping up because people listen to each other. We've lost, our sense of trust in our media and some of our doctor relationships and some of our community. But boy, a girlfriend's gonna tell you. Down in the South, girlfriend's gonna tell you where to go to get what you want. And that's the girlfriend network. The guys on the golf course, they're gonna tell each other how it really goes. So the word of mouth from your own experience opens doors. Sharing your story. One of the things Dr. Tim Noakes did is he started, along with the Real Meal Revolution, the Banting certification, and a friend and I did that. We were the first 2 Americans to do it. And he says, lead through your anecdotal story. We've all got a story, and it's very, very powerful. And so my story is, I have a story, I tell my story, and people get touched by that, and then we help them in a community where they can keep their focus, build their consistency, and over time change their lives.
Everybody's bringing up a different part of what makes this work long term, right? Because the truth is the only diet that works is the one that you can live with the rest of your life. Because we've all been on the diets, and you go back to your regular eating, and you always gain the weight back. And so community is one of the biggest keys to being able to maintain this as a lifestyle. Because if you're an island out there trying to follow this all by yourself, it's really hard. And so thank you so much for the work that you're doing there. I'm gonna call up Tyler Cartwright next. Yes.
You made the mistake of letting me on your podcast once, and now you're gonna bring me up here and hand me a microphone.
And then I'm gonna stand up because we're gonna have a hug too. So thank you so much for coming out, Tyler. Who knows Tyler Cartwright here, you guys? This story is really, really motivational and inspiring. Yeah. I called him up at breakfast. I'm like, you need to get in here. Breakfast is for losers. Tyler Cartwright, welcome.
Howdy.
Come on up, share your story, man.
I used to be really, really fat. So 11 and a half years ago, I was 505 pounds. I was large, to say the least. Lost just under 300 pounds. It got to a point where I was joking. I was like, I looked like I had a disease because I wanted that 300-pound number, like it was gonna happen, and I got right to the edge of it, and I thought, this is stupid. Like, when you literally lay on the couch trying to figure out, like, should I get up and do something, or just lay here the rest of the day because you're like starving yourself to try and you're chasing that number, and it's like it's completely artificial. Actually just decided to forget it, and so went ahead and had skin removal surgery and all that stuff done, and I was like magically went to the other side of the 300-pound number, because apparently skin weighs something. I did not know. Started doing this back when there wasn't a lot of information. I mean, like you could dig up some of the information, like the old Atkins books. You could dig up if you were really into the weightlifting scene, you could find like Bob McDonald's The Ketogenic Diet, which, if you're not a science-minded person, is the most frustratingly difficult read in history, because Lyle tends to be very much like Charles Dickens. While at 20 words do when 100 will suffice just fine. And so it's a 600-page tome that I'm pretty sure involves Sauron and all kinds of stuff. But it is crazy. So there wasn't a lot of useful information. I mean, there was kind of the bro science, and I come from a bit of a sports and powerlifting background, and so there wasn't a lot of information that was out there that was in any way valid or credible. It was a lot of wishful thinking more than actual, tangible, physiologic or biochemically accurate information. And I've joked that I've invented new ways to screw this up along the path of trying to kind of get to a place where I can say this actually works, this makes sense. And Just 11 years now, I mean, I just keep banging this same drum for people that'll listen, and the answer is just, what we do dietarily is context driven. You hit the nail on the head a minute ago. The diet that you'll stick with is the one that's best for you, as long as the diet you're sticking to is the one that's getting you the result that you want. And I think sometimes we get so focused and myopic on projecting our own dreams and desires onto everybody that we come in contact with that you just can't want that more than somebody else wants it for themselves. And so got hooked up with this really muscular little diminutive Mexican fella named Luis Villasenor about 5 years ago. He's actually hanging out with his fiance and finishing his breakfast that you pulled me away from cruelly.
I told you at the time.
And so we started talking and realized we're both pop culture junkies and kids of the 80s, and so we kind of grew up in that space and struck up a friendship, and over time people say, hey, how can I get involved, and how can I learn from you guys what you do? And as with a lot of things, and I think kind of hearing that earlier when I just came in was, it's funny, you get into this space where people want as much of your time as you're prepared to give them, and sometimes what they really want is your transformation to be their transformation, but they want you to do it for them. And it's funny when you put a price tag on that, very quickly, how much they start going, well, I don't really want that, or they're really committed to it, right? I mean, there's a reason that the diet that websites and stuff are doing very well. It's there's a consequence to having that result. It really wasn't an issue till it started pulling away from time from my family, from my wife and my daughter and my parents, and actually traveling and not being tethered to that damnable device over there forever. And so as of last count, just with our beginner and our novice groups, we've got about 817 people that have been sending consistent data in. I think at the end of this camp that we actually
Wait, you didn't mention what the name of the group is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Keto Gains. Sorry.
You're not wearing
I have the road shirt, but my mug, if you'll rotate the mug, actually has the Keto Gains on it. So 817, I believe, was the total of unique people that have been consistently sending in data. Over the last, coming up on 2.5 years, it's about 31 months, they've lost right under 32,000 pounds. Just a smidge. It's more weight than the largest bomb that's ever been dropped in the history of mankind. That's a lot. It's more than will fit on a low boy with a double axle. I'll learn that from a friend of mine that's a trucker. But yeah, I mean, it's funny when you take people back to a very ancestral way of eating, when you take people back away from food that was engineered to be hyper palatable, hyper available, and taking them into a place where, in spite of their affluence, they actually feel satiated and they feel empowered to just kind of do it themselves, right? It doesn't require, the answer is not in the pill, it's not in the powder, it's not in the potion. The answer is in equipping people that have their own successes and their own stories. And so, yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. Excited to hang out with you for the weekend, and thanks for sharing your story. Is it 11:40 already?
Yes. No. Yes.
10:40.
Oh no, we've got a whole hour.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've got a whole hour. All right, we have another volunteer that would like to share her story. Come on up. Tell her thanks. You can go finish your breakfast now.
Yeah, I'm going to drink not in the way that I normally do.
Okay. Sweet. Oh, well, they've got portable. Come on up. Hi, Emmy. Emmy, I love your little princess barrette there. All right, let's hear your story. Please share.
Hey everyone, good morning. So I've never shared this story publicly before because, I just actually have two friends here, Chris and Miriam, Charles. So I probably would have shared if they weren't in the room. I'm here by myself, and it's my second time traveling in 9 years because I was bedridden for 3 to 5 years, however you want to count it, 3 years. with something called MECFS. I don't know if any of you have seen that documentary on rust. But I used to backpack, kayak, golf, do Olympic distance triathlons, and ski, snowshoe, whatever, you name it. I loved doing it. I wanted to learn how to slackline and kite surf. I wanted to have children. But I got a flu that didn't go away. 6 months later, I could barely move. It took me 2 or 3 hours to work my muscles enough to just go about 15 steps to go to the bathroom. It was a great week if I took a shower or could brush my own hair. Eventually, I just kind of dealt with it, and was so weak, so tired, so disabled that I didn't even have a smartphone or an iPad. My laptop was too far away. So I never researched anything. And it took me 5 years to kind of get to come across an article about that really famous guy who cured himself with brain cancer. What's his name? I should know his name. But he had this article, and he had this Keto Force bottle. It was a dark green bottle, and this photograph that the photographer or whoever the journalist was interviewing him. And I had seen all the other supplements. I was like, oh yeah, I've done omega-3, I've done vitamin D, I've done whatever, I've done it. But I was like, what is this Keto Force bottle? So I Google it, and it comes up on Amazon, and read the like 20 reviews about it. And I'm like, what are these people talking about? And I knew about phytochemicals, I knew about folate, and I was eating kale in the 90s, and like my family members, when they would come to my house, they would get spinach and egg white omelets, and you know, because I'm like healthy, California, right? But something had stricken me so ill that here I couldn't move, so I didn't understand what these reviewers were talking about. What is a ketone? And I'm a learned person, more or less, or at least I was before I got struck down. So I researched it, and I came across that website, Butter Makes Your Pants Fall Off. Oh my God, isn't he so much fun? I love him. And then I have so much blessings. I came across Jimmy Moore's podcast, and Dr. Stephen Finney, who I met in Breckenridge in March, and got to cry with him and thank him for sharing about the ketogenic diet from a native perspective, because I'm half Hickory Apache, so there's 5 Apache tribes, mine's in northern New Mexico. And I probably wouldn't have embraced keto so hard had it not been for Dr. Stephen Finney. Because he, the story of the Inuit. So Apache people were part Athabascan, and so a lot of our, relatives are up in Alaska. And I have also worked with tribes and have met many Alaskan natives from Alaska. So it really, it was like a gift. I thought, okay, well, hello, they did it, so clearly I'm gonna do it. So I asked my husband, like, can we do this? And can you give up drinking all of your juice at dinner? Because it smells so good. Oh my God, and we put bee pollen, hello? Don't put bee pollen in your juice, people. It's like sugar with sugar with sugar with sugar. Anyway, so we did it. I got into ketosis in 2 weeks, and it was really, really remarkable. And eventually I got the courage to spend that $60 on that Keto Force exogenous ketones. And it's a liquid exogenous ketone, and it's potassium-based. So it's quite different than the most salt-powdered exogenous ketones. And during my 2 weeks of in-depth research, of course, I came across Dr. Dominic Agostino. Who doesn't love Dom, right? Like, I literally listened to every podcast about 3 or 4 times. And I was hoping he would have been here. He wasn't, so I'll see him in Long Beach in end of January. But so through my whole keto journey, that was in August 2016, I have still had to deal with these really hardcore ME episodes. So basically, your body and your muscles get in this weird contraction and turned off, and it's almost like you're paralyzed. So people link that syndrome, I guess, with what they call chronic fatigue syndrome, but it's not even fatigue, it's literally like almost pseudo-paralysis. Your muscles work, you're not paralyzed, but you basically have no access to them. And so I've dived deep into the science with insulin resistance. Dr. Ben Bickman is incredible. And probably a lot of you know about insulin resistance, and you might know that when the receptor in the cell is insulin resistant, Dr. Ben Bickman says that it's actually in contraction. And that's something I definitely experienced, just being like solid concrete and unable to move. My muscles were in contraction. I didn't do any exercise, any aerobics, and I used to be, like I said, very, very athletic, and I would lose my muscle gains and my cardio from, just maybe taking a 2-week break or 3-day break. But with ME, I never lost any muscle mass. And there I was, like a lot of people with ME, they actually wilt away, they become emaciated, kind of like cachexia and cancer. But I didn't. I still had like guns, but I just couldn't lift anything. I couldn't really use my arms and mobilize myself. So eventually, in the science with Dominic, he mentions that he developed ketone ester. And his isn't out on the market yet. He deals more with not the beta-hydroxy side of the ketone ester, but I am a big-time consumer of the ketone ester made by Human. It's also the same base patent product by Dr. Richard Veach. Probably a lot of you know Dr. Richard Veach. He's one of the, he helped Dr. Mary with her husband. Remember the story of him and his Alzheimer's? And then he got ketone ester, and then they did a brain scan, and so he's my favorite person to mention, but he's since passed away, so. But his story lives on in me when I tell people, hey, ketone ester and Alzheimer's. Anyway, so I was one of the first to buy a box of ketone ester, and it was miraculous. I really would not be here with you guys were it not for what that ketone ester does. And I know a lot of the conversation in the keto community is pretty down against exogenous ketones. We're not in the Prove It crowd, that's that big exogenous ketone salt company, and they have these great conferences, and I would love to go, but I don't sell that, and I won't sell anything. But I just really want to be kind of share my story with this crowd in particular. I know clearly you guys don't have any, otherwise you wouldn't be here, or if you do, hey, shout out to you. Tell me what you did. But I just want to say that in all the things that we share with people, maybe you can just be a little bit less anti-exogenous ketone, because it's a hard fight penetrating somebody's like illness mentality, and when you deal with what you're dealing with, it's hard. And so the 2 minutes that you have to look up something on the internet, if you hear all this babble against it, anti, it's really scary. Like you heard me, my voice was cracking, I was crying. It's scary. It's really a space of being super vulnerable. But when I was driving to Breckenridge, which is in March, because I wanted to meet Dr. Finney, and I wanted to meet Ivor, and you know the whole game. I wanted to cheer on Megan and tell everyone thank you for helping me get better. My stepmom told me that her best friend's daughter had been suffering with ME, and I had just learned about it in November, so I'm only 8 months knowing that it even existed. I didn't even know there were millions of others like me. But she told me sadly that her best friend's daughter had committed suicide because she couldn't tolerate the pain anymore. So I just wanted to leave you with people have serious pain with this condition, but they're willing to end their suffering. And when I hear their deaths, it just makes me very, very sad. And I heard of one more about 3 weeks ago, and I was and I promised myself when I was driving to Breckenridge that if I heard of one other person committing suicide, that I would have to speak up, because I'd have to let go of not wanting to have myself on the internet, not wanting to have my photo taken, not wanting to have to say how miserable my life was for 9 years. Because it's not fun to have people come up to you with sympathy. You know, and what's so great about being in this keto community is everyone's like, I lost 40 pounds, woohoo, I lost 305 pounds, or, you know, whatever Tyler just said. Or, you know, I run this clinic and I have 80 patients or whatever. So I'm not really sharing my story for anybody's sympathy, and that's something that's hard to manage, and sharing something so, I guess, personal and, I don't know, it's like a deficit. It feels like, why did I get it? But I actually have this protocol, and a lot of it has to do with that ketone ester. So if you guys are fans of Dr. Richard Beach, you've heard Dr. Mary Newman and Dr. Jeff Bullock and Dr. Dominic Augustino, they talk about how the exogenous ketone is really anti-inflammatory, and the ketone in general. And if you've heard Jimmy Moore, he always talks about there's 14 inflammation markers that go down by almost everybody who does the ketogenic diet. And so, in taking the ester and occasionally other exogenous ketones, I literally feel like, well, one, I know I'm more insulin sensitive, but I know the whole nervous system is becoming less under attack. And so if you know anyone who has this condition, or family members, or who knows somebody, and you can give up for like two minutes what you heard about exogenous ketones, could you please share it with them? Because it will hopefully make a difference for a few of them, and maybe it won't, because like what I've learned in the keto community is everybody is different. You can have the same diet and like 4 people will react completely different. You know, a 1 upgrade in millimolars or 2 in somebody has a completely different effect as in somebody else. Somebody does an hour exercise, their sugar goes up, or their ketones go up, or whatever. It's just everyone's completely different. So thank you very much. And I can't believe I did this, and I totally regret it, but I just thank you for letting me share.
I love the fact that you make that bargain, that you have this mission now, and you're coming from the same place that a lot of us are, that through your own pain and healing journey, that you're inspired to help others. And yeah, a lot of people are going to be down on exogenous ketones. I'm of the position that for therapeutic uses, they have amazing transformative benefits. And so thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it was hard, so I just want to thank you so much. You're going to be changing so many lives, and I know that that's really why you did that, is that you want to help others, and you're going to do that. And there's going to be waves and ripples that are for years and years to come, that you're going to hear about how you've really influenced somebody's journey, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. And again, I commend you on your bravery. I know it's really hard to get up here in front of all these people, and the thought of being out there, the internet watching you as well too. So thank you, Emmy, very much. All right. Ooh, yes, we're getting all kinds of thumbs up and love in the audience here. So give Instagram. You can't do love and hearts on Instagram. So if anybody's watching live from any other platform right now, give some hearts and love to everyone here. Who would like to share their keto, low carb success journey story? I've got one in the back, sir. I saw that hand go up first. Come on up. Come on up. Yes, you in the back by the wall. Yes. Oh, ma'am. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I'm a little nearsighted too, so I just.
I don't mind.
Ma'am, what's your name?
I'm Ellie.
Ellie, thank you so much for coming up to share your story.
Sorry, I called you. That's okay. I love you all. Thank you. And I am traveling all the way from a country called Georgia. Actually, the Keto, Georgia, right in the U.S. I've actually been doing keto for about 2.5 years. And prior to that, and I'm a nurse who had never heard of works for you and so forth, and mentioning keto. And I said, well, I want to have a talk with you. And I said to myself, when you go, shut up and listen, and then make your decision. And that's what I did. I listened to her, and in the meantime, myself and my sister, we were trying so hard. We were doing foodies and oatmeal and all that they tell us to do. And so once she gave me the information, as a nurse, I decided I need to do for myself. So I started doing the research. And my sister and I, we share an office, and I texted her and I said, we've been doing this all along. And she said, don't leave me behind. So I just decided, let me do what I needed to do. So as I was educating myself, I was also, practicing keto. It just so happened that as an athlete, I was asthmatic, and I found out the moment I dropped sugar, I stopped wheezing. And I thought, okay. And not only as an athlete, but I started having, joint pains and popping the leaves. Within I'd say about 3 or 4 weeks after I started, and I woke up one day and I said, well, I didn't do a leave yesterday. So that kind of encouraged me, to go on. So long story short, I am much better. My sister, who's 5 feet even, has run 4 marathons doing just fasting mode because we've been at it. She lost weight finally. I've lost, a significant amount of weight, but what helps me is the fact that I realize it's not just a diet, it's a lifestyle, because the moment you go out of it, you're going to invite all your symptoms back. And as a nurse, my heart aches because I work with dietitians, I do, critical care nursing, I case manage those cases, cardiac nursing I've done, and it hurts me to see when we get a lot of diabetic ketoacidosis that comes in, and to see the dietitians keep telling them, that much carb, that much fat, So I kind of feel that we need this movement to help, our members, our family members, patients to know that the standard American diet does not always work for everyone, that most of us can actually do much better on the low carb management. So again, I'm grateful that I'm learning from the experts. I'm an avid reader, so D'Agostino and Sidnoak and so forth, they're part of my repertoire, and so I'm just grateful that I actually have been given the opportunity to know this way of eating and to do my own research and knowing, because what I do tell people is you can't put yourself on autopilot with this, and you can't just get into something without knowing what you're getting into. It really is important that you educate yourself and figure out what's going on so that you're not into something and then you say, it doesn't work for me, but you don't know why. I'm not saying it's going to work for all, but most of us can actually be on low carb, and I know that for me, it's the lifestyle that I'm going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, another person who's inspired to help as many others as she can. Wonderful. All right, person in the pink right there, got you next to come up and share your keto or low carb success story. Thank you. What's your name?
I'm Michelle.
Michelle. Nice to meet you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I started my keto low carb journey 6 years ago. And so I just kind of I'm inspired by Emmy. I'm going to share some things that I don't necessarily like to talk about, but I'm just going to kind of do a list, here's what improved for me. So, 6 years ago, even though I had spent my whole life being athletic and eating whole food, and I grew up with lots of garden produce, and I've always had my own garden, I still found myself rather sick. So I was in my mid-40s, and I thought, oh my God, I feel like everything I know must be a mistake. I've done everything to stay healthy. So I luckily stumbled across Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes, and after reading it twice, I just had a whole paradigm shift in a really big way. So I just went out and got a glucometer and just started seeing how what I ate affected my blood sugar. That's where I started. So I want to share my list of things that improved for me over the last 6 years. So first of all, you're not going to be able to see this, So I'm just gonna pass it around. This is really embarrassing, but 6 years ago, for 20 years, I had suffered with complete toenail fungus. Every toe, there was nothing that anybody felt to be done for me. And I have photos of what my feet looked like 6 years ago. I'm just gonna pass around my phone. So folks can just look through that, you know, if you like really gross stuff.
So you can show your toes.
Yeah, and so, I should have done that. But now you're welcome, all conference, come and look at my feet, you know. So over the last 6 years, they have just literally gotten better and better and better. And at this point, there's only one toenail that's finishing growing that out. And you know, all the experts had told me that would be impossible. I was so far gone, there was just nothing really to be done for me. So
Who else has had that? I've had that as well. Yeah. Stepdaughter, okay.
6 years ago, I was very hypoglycemic all the time, and food ruled my life. I felt like eating all the time. And I mean, I thought about, when I wasn't eating food, I was thinking about food, and I was making food all the time so I could make it as healthy as possible. But it was really very important to me to get food. And of course, as y'all know, you know, at this point, I eat if I need to eat. I mean, food is not an important entertainment value in my life. And 6 years ago, actually, okay, this is gonna be hard to say, but I was diagnosed as bipolar, and I didn't want to go on all the drugs that would be necessary. So I've been mood stable for 6 years, which to me is amazing. I wake up in the morning and I just feel great. I feel great all day long. I have lots of energy, and then I go to bed and I sleep, and then, you know, repeat. And for me, to be just stable mood-wise is really fantastic. Then there was the UTIs. So 6 years ago, I had spent the last 20 years having them becoming so frequent that they were actually starting to happen a couple times a month. And for 6 years, I've not had a single UTI. And so anyway, I'll leave it there. Those are some of the things that I've enjoyed.
What's UTI?
Oh, urinary tract infection. Also, I just never get sick. I don't know, I love it. No, I'm gonna share one thing that's really important to me. A lot of people I know come to this lifestyle to lose weight, and I am all a huge fan, believe me, I am such a big fan of losing weight. But I weigh exactly the same weight as I did 16 years ago. Weight loss has not happened for me. For the first time in my life, I just got a DEXA scan. I found out my bone density is off the chart high. Like it was like they had all the different levels. He's like, there's yours. And it was way out of it wasn't even on the graph. It was so good. And since my whole, since my mother and my grandmother, as far back as we know, had osteoporosis, that's great for me. Wow. I'm really excited about that. Thank you. And they found out, even though I have a high body fat percentage of my visceral fat is excellent. So those are kind of information that I was guessing was right on, but I didn't know. But I just wanted to really say, not everybody gets to lose weight. I don't know why, but it doesn't really keep looking at all the other factors and keep your eye on those prizes. And anyway, thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for sharing. Who would like to go next here? Let's see.
You go.
She does.
I came in late, so I'm getting the forum, but can I come up there? Or do you have to sign up?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Nope, you're up. You're next.
Okay.
Sign your triplicate.
For Instagram Live, we're going to reset here. We are live from the 3rd annual LowCarbUSA conference down in San Diego. Yeah, we have an audience here, people listening right now. Give it up for them. We have been sharing success stories on keto and low carb approach, and so we have Debra up next.
Hi everybody, thanks for listening. So I've been a fitness instructor, personal trainer, nutrition counselor, weight loss counselor since I was 16. I'm 47 years old. I was the one in the 80s pushing the low-fat craze, you name it, like everybody else was doing. I got away with eating sugar my whole life. I didn't have a weight problem. I did not come to keto because of a weight issue. For the last 10 years, save for the last year, I was a chronic migrainer, debilitating. And they started shortly after I had kids, and they just started to increase, and started to increase, and started to increase. And I, being the researcher that I was, went everything. I couldn't drink coffee, couldn't drink alcohol. I cut out certain things, all the migraine triggers that the standard care has taught us about, and to no avail. And they kept giving me more drugs, more triptan drugs, and with that, my migraines started to be so sensitive I had to wear sunglasses inside on a cloudy day. I couldn't fly without a migraine. I couldn't get my period without a migraine. I couldn't drink a sip of alcohol. I became one of these people that was sensitive to everything. So years go on, and I'm doing osteopathy, chiropractic, massage. I'm doing everything. So I went back to my neurologist and said, "What do I do? This is crazy." "Well, you're taking too many triptan drugs, so we're going to have to put you on a daily preventative of Topamax." And the caveat she said to me, true story, she said to me, "But there is some side effects, and one of them is that it might make you dumb. You'll be sitting with someone, you'll be sitting with your good friend of 20 years, and you'll forget her name. But you might, get past your migraines." And I thought, this is not a solution. I'm in the fitness industry, I manage a health food store. This is not happening for me. And I was so ready to do anything. So I went home and I looked up epilepsy drugs, natural solutions for epilepsy. And wouldn't you know it, 100 years ago, they had the ketogenic diet for epileptic children who were resistant to, well, first of all, they didn't have the drugs back then. And they had a great success. And then the diet fell out of favor in the 1950s when the pharmaceuticals came in and all the rest of it. So I thought, well, I'm going to give this a try. This was a little over a year ago now. And you know that in the first week, I felt the sensitivity of my brain normalize. And I had to go through that difficult transition, and this is where I think I actually have just created a website a month ago called migrainefreeday.com, just outlining what I've curated over the year on what works, what my personal story was, how to get off the drugs, do it naturally, and not just be suffering with the migraine the whole time. Anyhow, so I'm not one of these sort of evangelist people, but I can tell you this has absolutely changed my life. And I'm here because I want to be part of a community that I can connect with and invest in and share. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for sharing your story with us and giving one more example, right? So a lot of times people hear of keto and all they think of it is the weight loss, but this is just one more example of the tremendous power that this approach, this lifestyle has on so many different health conditions that people are needlessly suffering with. So, yeah.
About the weight, I relate because I was the exact same weight as I was a year ago, but that wasn't my goal. And the benefits outside of the migraine, which of course is amazing, but there's all these other little benefits that have just come my way that are such a bonus that I didn't realize I wasn't living at that level of thriving that I could. And I'll never go back. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Debra. I have another person coming up to the warm seat. Naoko, welcome. Please share your story. She has notes. This is great.
Okay, so just to follow up on Deborah's story, I come from the other side. I'm a neurologist, and so I took care of all these migrant people, and I don't have a weight problem. I am on semi-keto diet for many years, but I have issues with my husband. So he's my biggest project. And I am using everything I know to help him, but I meet resistance. And somebody said, you really have to, that person has to want to get better, and that it's very difficult to convince someone to get on it. Well, I cook and cook and cook. So he does eat what I cook. That's very fortunate. And he's maybe gradually changing. But I want to tell you, Debra, that I come from the other side, and I take care of all these migraine patients and other problems. And for neurology, for brain, ketogenic diet is the best diet. It prevents Alzheimer's disease, it helps Parkinson's disease, it cures migraine, it cures all kinds of things. But I go to all these neurology meetings, and if I mention ketogenic diet, epilepsy, of course, and if I mention anything, I just get shut down. and they are really all into, you know, the drugs. And it's so sad to see that a lot of doctors have become a pharmaceutical agent. And they just push drugs after drugs and after drugs. And so Topamax, you know, and then all the triptans. I mean, I was one of those doctors who would come, have a patient come in and try this, try that one, try this one, and you know, ultimately nothing works and nothing is being cured. And so I woke up to diet many years ago, but I have to tell you that in a real neurological world or regular medical world, it just doesn't cut it. And then patients don't want to change either. So I just gave up. And I just got out of that box, and I decided to come to talks like this and meetings like this to connect with other people, and that's what I'm here for.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Nelson then. Yes, oh my gosh, I am so excited every time I hear of a medical doctor or healthcare provider that's, we'll use the millennial term, that's woke to the power of a ketogenic diet. I'm personally under the care of a neurologist myself right now, and I had, related to that car accident, earlier this year I had a vertebral artery dissection occur, residual weakness in my artery from that car accident. And you probably know that when that happens, typically the first symptoms people have are stroke symptoms. I never had that. I just had the worst headache I'd ever had that lasted for 4 days. And when they finally saw the scans, they were like, oh my gosh, you've got this little tear in the inside of your artery. We're really surprised because most people, when this happens, you have stroke symptoms. That's the first symptoms that show up. And so thankfully, I'm so grateful. I mean, 4 years ago when I started getting care after that car accident, none of my healthcare providers knew anything about a ketogenic diet, but 4 years later, the neurologist that I see now, he was so excited that I was following a ketogenic diet. He said, that's why you didn't have a stroke after this happened. Yeah. He said, that's why you're doing so well. I mean, I've even had people say that people die from this vertebral artery dissection. One of the 4 major arteries that supplies the brain with blood. Basically, one of mine had a little tear that occurred inside of it. So I'm really excited every time we get a doctor, especially a neurologist, the one that I'm seeing, he was so excited. He was picking my brain about ketogenic diet, and it's just really, really, things are starting to turn. It's really slow to get the medical establishment to change course, course correction in a big giant ship that they're on. But it's really exciting every time we get that, because you're right, it's truly transformational. And I'm here today, not only has the ketogenic diet transformed my health from 4 years ago after that car accident, but even earlier this year, keto saved my life again, or at least kept me from having some really serious health problems. So there's a lot of reasons to keep sticking with this for me, and again, really excited when we have healthcare providers that are coming on board too. So thank you for coming out and helping change the world. So, all right, who is next that would like to share their keto or low carb success story? Don't be shy. We've had some people that are very, very brave come up here and share some very vulnerable things. All right, come on up. Look at it. Pink purple hair twins here, yeah. So, Esther. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm coming from Mexico, and I am a scientist, a molecular biologist. And I have been diabetic for 6 years. And until last December, I was following all the instructions that my physicians were telling me. And I can tell you that I have the best physicians available for me in Mexico. And on December, my A1C was 10.2, even when I was following all the instructions, because I believe I am a good patient, I am disciplined, I am obedient, so nothing was worse. So on January this year,
examples actually, so diabetes as well as PCOS and their infertility issues. Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, who would like to share their keto success story, journey, results, low carb? Don't be shy. We've had a lot of vulnerability today. All right, who else is out there? All right, okay, so if nobody else wants to share, I'm going to start calling some people up to share some tips. We'll just go into that realm of how do you make keto work for you? Like, because this is the thing, we live in a world, in a society where there are carbs everywhere, and it's part of our culture is that you give carbs and sugar to people as gifts, and you celebrate. It's how you show love, and you know, in every office there's candy bowls. Okay, so you want to share some tips?
Yeah, I just have one funny tip.
Okay. Get the big, come on back up here, Emmy.
Okay, so when I am in an Emmy episode, the brain is like, give me glucose. And then I will go off track and yeah, I'll eat some bread. But to help me not put that as a pattern for like a go-to cure, I like to say bread is death bread. So whenever I just see the word bread or have it connotated in my mind, I just say death bread. And it's supposed to be funny, right?
No, that's great, actually. I mean, I'm actually a clinical hypnotherapist as well. Multiple hats and trainings that I've got, and that's actually a technique. You can also think of it as a visualization if the thought of hypnotherapy scares you. Visualization. It's the same techniques that the PETA group does that brainwashes people into thinking that meat is bad. You pair. It's actually, that's why we have so many vegans that are so afraid of that. Like, oh, the welfare of the animals. Yes, of course we love the animals and we care about them, but that's exactly a technique, the way that the brain works. All of you can actually do this is, if there's something that you struggle with, there's usually like one thing that's my my kryptonite, I can't resist that if I see it. If you make an association with something that's gross, foul, disgusting, or a word association, and especially if you visualize true death when you think of that, so if you think of bread, and then here's a little secret behind the scenes of how the brain works, is that if you use all 5 senses in your visualization of that, that's the key to making it, we could do this, anybody want to just do this right now?
Yeah.
I'll lead you live through this. Okay, so bring, and now, just take a deep breath. This is a bonus Instagram thing here. Now, but this is all about your own level of comfort. There's nothing magic or anything I'm doing. You're all in full control while we do this. The only thing that happens is whatever you're willing to allow to happen. And so, just sitting comfortably, just take that nice deep breath in. Let go of all the stress, carbs. If you feel comfortable, if and when you feel comfortable, just allowing your eyes to close down. Now, in whatever hand that you feel comfortable right now, just bringing that hand face up, open towards the ceiling. In that hand, I want you to imagine your carby kryptonite food, the one that if it was right in front of you right now, you would not be able to say no to. Just imagine that there. Yes. Yeah. All right. Imagine it with all of your senses, right? So what does it smell like? What does it look like? The colors and shapes and textures. What does it feel like? You can actually feel the texture in your hand. Also, for a moment, briefly imagine what it even tastes like. All right, just hold on to that there in that hand, just closing your hand around that. We're going to come back to that in a moment. Just noticing now on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense your craving is for that food right now. It's probably pretty high, but don't worry, we're going to get that down. Now put that hand down, you've got that food there wrapped up in there. Now the other hand, turn that one up towards the ceiling. Now in this hand, you're going to imagine the grossest, most foul, disgusting thing that your mind can conjure up. Really foul and disgusting, whatever it is your mind made up or real. Now imagine that it's the color of it, the texture. Oh my God, it's disgusting. The smell is so repulsive. You've never smelled anything as foul and disgusting as that ever. The feel, the smell, oh my God, and even if you put that in your mouth, you might feel your stomach just turning right now thinking about it. And we're gonna amp that up just a little bit. Even more disgusting and foul. You can barely stand to have it in your hand at this moment. Now, in a moment, I'm gonna count from 1 up to 3, and at 3, I want you to clap both of your hands together. And at the number 3, those two things in your mind will mesh together and become one. All right, so 1, 2, 3, clap your hands together, smush them around, mush them up in your mind. These are becoming one together. That disgusting, foul thing, along with that carby trigger food, are all one now in your mind. And notice as you're rubbing your hands together that the desire for that food is coming down, down, down. That disgusting, repulsive thing is now one in your mind with that other food. And anytime that you see or smell that former carby food, you can't even stand to be in the same room with it. It's so disgusting. You might even notice that, your stomach turns just a bit. You immediately have to remove yourself from the situation. You can't even stand the thought of being near it. And now, I want you to wash your hands off. Wash your hands good and clean, letting it all go. All that disgustingness is gone. It's all meshed up in your mind. Now, just as a test, bring back your original first hand that you put up. Now imagine that same carby food that you did before. Notice your level of desire for that now. How many of you notice that it's a lot less? Yeah, how many of you are feeling that burpy feeling in your stomach as you think about it? Yes. Yeah, again, okay, so wash your hands off again. Good and clean. Now, just taking another cleansing deep breath. Releasing all the stress and tension. I'm going to count from 1 up to 5, and you'll come back up, feeling refreshed and alert, and you're going to have more energy today than you ever have. Alert and awake. And with each number coming from 1 up to 5, you're going to feel even more awake. Alert. 1, 2, 3, breathing deep, coming back up. 4, 5, wide awake, alert, eyes open. Putting your feet down solidly on the ground. All of you coming back. Do we have everyone that's come back? Anyone else still feeling sleepy? Brian, wake up. Yep, Brian over there. All right. Hey, that was a fun little bonus. I haven't done that in a long time. So, as we go through the conference this weekend, come up to me and share with me how this affects you the rest of the weekend. I have one client from maybe like 5 years ago, and she still tells me, she's like, I still think French fries are disgusting and gross. Like, I can't even look at them in a restaurant anymore. So for some of you, this will be a lifelong thing that it no longer is. Sometimes people need a little refreshment, and we've got this on video, so you guys will be able to have a bonus, and you can re-listen to this and think about it. But again, the trick for yourselves, you can do this yourselves. You don't need somebody else's help. But the trick to it is bringing in all of the senses. And so that's kind of the way the brain works at memorizing things, is that the more vividly you can imagine things. So think about all 5 senses when you imagine something, and that is what the trick is. I just tell you a little trick. Any question, or you want to share your story?
Quick comment, Dr.
Yeah, what's your name?
Mark.
Mark.
I didn't expect that to work, and I'm a bit sad right now. Krispy Kreme is
I know.
And it really turns my stomach.
Yeah, oh my gosh, Mark, thanks for sharing that. I know. When I did my training as well, we learned, through experience ourselves, and I had a really hard time. I learned that before I knew anything about keto. And I had a really hard time picking something because I was like, but I kind of like that. I don't want to think it's gross and disgusting. So sometimes that comes up for people. So yeah, thank you so much. Anyone else have any other comments or, you know, like, yeah, Greg?
You know, I think if you're talking to people for the first time.
Do you want to come up on the mic and?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of Keep It Simple, Stupid, you know? And there's a guy named, he's a functional medicine guy in California, in Berkeley, I think, is Chris Kresser. Anybody ever heard of him before? And he boils it down and says just 3 words: eat real food. Because when people see what, you know, transformation for me, it's like, what are you doing? It's like, I go to the grocery store, I go to the vegetable aisle, I get avocados, I get garlic, I get greens, I get lots of love mushrooms. And then I go to the meat aisle, I get a lot of red meat, a lot of really healthy meat. And then I get real butter, and I get eggs, and so maybe some really good cheese, and I hightail out the store. End of story. You know, I think where people kind of go off in left field with this is that they try to overcomplicate it. And for people just starting off with it, you got to keep it simple. You know, if you guys seen The Magic Pill, that movie on Netflix, awesome. Or Tom Malton's Fat, great movie. You know, they kind of detail it. This is as you mentioned, ancestral eating. You know, and if it grows out of the ground or walks on the ground, it's fair game. If it comes in a box and says Triscuit, it's not. You know, so I think that if you're, from my standpoint at least, because I've had people that I just go off in left field with this, and I just chance meeting, and we're still pen pals back and forth in text. What about this? What about this one? It's like, keep it simple. You know, and I think that's for people initially starting off with this. That's a good way to be, and then you can kind of tailor this, because one of the revelations that I'm sure that you've all realized with this too is that everybody processes food differently. And Steve Finney makes the point about carbohydrate intolerance. And he's right, some people can tolerate this much, some people can tolerate this much, but everybody's different. But you have to start somewhere. I think that's for me, trying to explain to some people who don't get it yet, and listen to the American Heart Association, USDA, you keep it simple, and go buy a crock pot or Instant Pot. You'll love it. Anyway, that's my tip.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for the tip. Well, how are we doing on time? What time is it right now?
11:30.
Okay, so we have 5 or 10 more minutes. Anyone else have any other tips they want to share? Or even if we have somebody that's come in and wants to share their success too, we still have some time for that. So Michelle, come on back up.
Okay, here's my favorite tip. I've many times taken my soda stream to parties, and it's really popular. So I'll bring like fresh lemon verbena out of the garden or other herbs. I bring, lemon, lime, the stevia stuff. And my favorite thing is to get bitters. And with my soda stream, which makes the sparkling water, it usually is a big hit. And I make keto beer. And the way you make keto beer is you take the sparkling water, you put a little bit of bitters. And it even froths. It looks like beer, and if you have a good imagination and haven't had beer in 6 years, it tastes like beer.
That's really cool. I've been wondering when somebody was going to come up with a low-carb, a really tasty low-carb beer, yeah. That's totally a microbrew as well. Yeah. Nano brew. Yeah. Anyone else have any other tips they want to share? Chuck? If you guys came in later, Chuck has lost, 137 pounds in the last year on keto, so this story was our first one.
First off, I will say that I tried vegan for like 5 minutes. Then I give myself a lot of trouble when I talk about veganism, because they use that fertilizer that's made with animal guts and stuff anyway. So much for saving the animals. But I'll just talk to you about, I guess the best term I could use is premeditated food murder. What that means is, one thing that I've learned in keto is the first thing, obviously, that most of you know is going to restaurants, going to places where there's going to be food, and my family loves to go to places like that. So I call it premeditated food murder because I'll go on there's apps virtually for almost every restaurant now. You go and see the menu, and you plan your menus ahead of time before you get there. And so that's one of the things that I will do if I have to go to restaurants. I try to limit as much as possible going to places like that. And I barbecue a lot because barbecue is kind of like a thing where you can kick out with the family. Who mentioned keto beer? Yeah, thanks, Michelle. You totally ruined one of my favorite stories I like to tell. Because I'm a church guy, but one of the things I love doing to church people is we get a conference at my church. I go to a very large church, a mega church. But one of the things I like to do there is to mess with all the Christians because they all look at me, when you start talking about alcohol, they start freaking out. But it's so funny because, and I enjoy that part. So what I do is I got up there one day and I was talking about drinking beer. Everybody just kind of was looking at me with their mouths dropped and, oh my gosh, this guy, oh my, I've known this guy for 25 years. And then I sat there and then at the end of my little spiel, I said, okay, look, and I kind of was honest with everybody. I said, look guys, I don't really drink beer. I'm a church guy, just being honest here. And I said, I drink vodka, it's more ketogenically friendly. So thank you for that. Keto beer, that's great. But yeah, that would be my number one thing is when going to restaurants, I think the biggest thing I've learned is to get on the app, look at it, find out what they have available, and have a shot of vodka with your food. All right.
All right, thanks Chuck for the premeditated food murder tip. That's awesome, I love it. All right, anyone else have a tip they want to share? Okay, come on up.
No, I was stretching my head.
Oh, no, it's behind you.
Oh.
This isn't all about you, Chris. We have more people here, so Raheli, all right, welcome.
So my tip is not about food, it's about the mind, and because it's never just about the body, and I would say that what helped me a lot is doing a mind-based stress reduction, which is mindfulness. I don't know if you know the John Kabat-Zinn. And through that I got to yoga, and I do yoga pretty much every day, and it makes a huge difference aside from what other else you do or don't do, because it helps you reduce stress and probably reduce cortisol and do all sorts of other things. So I don't know what the medical or scientific explanation is, but I'm sure it's making a huge difference, and I've seen it in others too.
Wonderful, yeah, that's excellent. Stress reduction, yoga, meditation, all of those things are really essential to health, vitality, but also being able to stay on track with dietary change, because the truth is the way our brain works is any stressful thing that comes up, it's going to go on autopilot and revert back to those old eating habits too. So wonderful, wonderful tip. Anyone else have a tip, a little tidbit, a little story they want to share? All right. Well, thank you all so very much for being here. Thank you for everything that you've shared, and thank you for the work that you're doing out there. We're all changing the world right here. It's happening. So have a great conference, you guys. Let's go listen to Jess.